the May 29th, 2025 meeting of the Rotary Club. Trey. I'm Lori Flannery. I'm the president and CEO of New Directions. I'm the president of this club and I'm a Paul Harris Fellow +1. I want to remind you all that we are at a Rotary meeting today. It's an official meeting, so if you have a device with you, if you will please make sure that it is either turned off or silenced for the duration of this hour, we would very much appreciate it. Now for our invocation today, I would like to invite to the front of the room Renee Brown. Renee is the CEO of RCV Health Corporation and also a Paul Harris Fellow +1.
Thank you, President Lori. Fellow guests, Rotarians, let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear gracious Father, we just thank you for bringing us together one more time. We thank you, Lord, for all of those that are gathered here today, both near and far. We thank you for our country. We thank you for the part that we play in our friendships and how we develop our relationships, but more importantly, how we display your love. Allow our fellowship, the food, be blessed, and allow us to understand each other and celebrate our differences under you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Renee. That was beautiful. How we display your love. I think that's going to stick with me today. I would like to note that Renee is a retired Lieutenant Colonel of the U.S. Army, and of course you must know that we all appreciate your service. Now to lead us in the pledge in the Rotary 4-way test is Dave Luckett, Principal of Luckett & Associates, Architects and Engineers.
Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the 4-way test.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Thank you all for being a part of our program today. And I would like to note that Dave is a retired Colonel, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we also appreciate your service. Okay, so we have so many guests with us today, as you might imagine. Our speaker is someone of note, speaking of whom just joined us. So because of that, usually we will introduce our guests so that we all know who's in the room, but we are not going to be able to do that today just because of time constraints. I do want to thank all of our guests for being here, and I want to thank all of our Rotarians for bringing guests to our club. I'd like to extend a welcome to past District Governor 5360, Governor Stephen Levitt from Alberta, Canada, and his wife Pat and daughter Stacy. So welcome so much for being here. You all might be the furthest from the furthest part. My understanding is they're here for a special reason, and so if you all would like to give them a nice bluegrass welcome and are able to stay after the meeting to introduce yourselves and to learn a little bit more about why they're here locally, please do so. We're also thrilled to have with us today Elizabeth Voss. Elizabeth is a junior at Louisville Collegiate, and she won our club's speech competition earlier this year. Then she advanced to the championship round. Thank you for staying. Championship round at the recent District 6710 conference, which she also won. Congratulations, Elizabeth, and thank you for representing our club so well. So guests, the next time you hear me ring this bell, that's going to mean that we are at the conclusion of our meeting. It is customary for you to go to the What is Rotary table. It's over here close to the door, and there's a placard on the top that says, What is Rotary? We'll spend just a few minutes at the conclusion of the meeting giving a brief overview of our club and what Rotary means. That would be appreciated, so thank you. Our Music and Arts Committee has arranged a special performance today. I would like to invite to the podium soprano Abigail Myers, who is a recent graduate of the University of Louisville with a Bachelor of Music and Vocal Performance, magna cum laude. Abby has performed regionally and internationally in a variety of styles and has also debuted solos, performing with U of L's Cardinal Singers. She currently sings with the choir at St. Francis in the Fields as a choral scholar while teaching voice throughout the Kentucky Inner region. Abby?
Let me test this real quick. I don't know if I need it, but we'll see.
Are you ready? Do you want to mention anything about this song?
Yes, so I'm singing a piece called Je ne t'aime pas by Kurt Weill. It is a French cabaret song, and it's a twist on a love song. Go see what it's about.
kindly stream, and the riot's bells are singing loud, ring from the heights, that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors that star-spangled banner wave, o'er the land of
Wow. That was so wonderful, Abby. Thank you. I mean, what a gift you have. Thank you for sharing it so beautifully with us here today. Also in honor of Memorial Day, which we know we celebrated on Monday, I would like to take a moment to, we have recognized both Renee and Dave for their service, but I would like for everyone in the room, whether you're a Rotarian or a guest, or someone who works in serving us, to make sure we get through our program, if you would please stand so that we can recognize your service. All veterans, please. Thank you so much for your service. We have a couple of Rotarians in the spotlight this week. We want to give congratulations to Dr. Swanee Jett on the 7 Telly Awards for his show CEO Live Talks. Now this is a show that spotlights diversity and equity to drive social change and celebrates inspirational voices. If you visit the YouTube channel, you're going to find several Rotarians who have been featured on the show. It's a lot of fun. We also want to give congratulations to Ken Grossman on being featured in Business First with an article on the importance of being intentional with your wardrobe as well as his tips for success. And I always say, and I said to him today as he walked in, I said, I know as many good-looking, well-dressed men I'm going to see at Rotary this Thursday, I always know who is going to be the best dressed singer, and it's going to be Ken Grossman. So congratulations to that Dr. If you haven't already done so, please RSVP for our annual Sherman Summer Social, see if you can say this quickly, on Sunday, June 8th at the amazing Anchorage home of Craig Sherman. Rain or shine, this is always a very special event. We will have dinner, an open bar, live music, beautiful views, great conversation, and a whole lot of fun. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or there will be a link in this week's Sparks and also on our website. So please do register so we can plan accordingly. June 8th will be here quicker than we think. Now I'd like to invite to the podium Karen Morrison, President and CEO of Builders Club Kentuckiana and Chair of our Awards and Recognition Committee for a special presentation.
Before I present the award, I want to thank those of you who made nominations for lifetime service and remind all of you that the deadline for Rotarian of the Year for 24-25 is this Friday. This year's recipient of the Lifetime Service Award has such a diverse and impressive background that it is difficult to capture with any brevity, but I will try to do it justice by hitting just some of the highlights that define this gentleman's prestigious professional and philanthropic endeavors. He has nearly 28 years of Rotary service, first becoming a Rotarian and a Paul Harris Fellow in Park Ridge, Illinois, near Chicago in 1990. He has been a member of this club for a mere 21 years and is currently a 1912 Society member and a Paul Harris Fellow +8. He has served in many roles for both this club and the district, including club president in 2014-15, and one of the best darn presidents we ever had. 2015-16 District Conference Chair, 2016-17 Club Rotarian of the Year, as well as District Rotarian of the Year, District Membership Attraction and Engagement Chair from 2017 to 2019, and 2019-2020 District Membership Chair. He was also instrumental in transitioning one of this club's signature projects, the Louisville Rotary Promise Scholarship Program, to Evolve 502. And he also helped ensure some significant enhancements to that program, which helped ensure an even greater impact. Professionally, he has served as a healthcare executive for over 40 years in 5 states, retiring from Norton Healthcare in 2016 after 13 years as Chief Administrative Officer of Norton Hospital Downtown and the Norton Cancer Institute. One of his many professional executive roles along the way was at the lesser-known MD Anderson. He also served on numerous boards of many healthcare-related organizations, including the Hospital Association boards of Illinois, Chicago, Texas, and Kentucky. He is a fellow of the American College of Hospital Executives, ACHE, and in 2013 was named ACHE Kentucky's Senior Executive of the Year. He served as board chair of the Regional Leadership Coalition, Hospice Health, and Jefferson Community and Technical College during a time of great growth and expansion. He also served as the JCTC Foundation Board, on the JCTC Foundation Board for several years. A 2005 Leadership Louisville grad, as well as a member of the 2008 Bingham Fellows. He later served on the Leadership Louisville Board of Directors for several years, and also served on a program called Encore, where he provided free expertise to nonprofits through consulting. We were a recipient of those services and some of his expertise in healthcare at Gilda's Club, and I'm still very grateful for that. He was also a participant in Leadership Kentucky in 2010. From his home state of California and across the country in the other 10 states where he has lived and worked, the expanse of his impact has been wide and deep. He is a husband, a father of 2 sons, and a grandfather of 3. Despite significant health challenges in recent years, he has continued to create a legacy of service and has remained engaged in Rotary, along with other philanthropic endeavors in our community. Of course, by now, you all know his name, Kevin Wardell. Please come forward to accept this award, signifying your incredible lifetime of service and the immeasurable difference you have made in this and every community you have lived. Rotary and every one of us who call ourselves Rotarians are better because of you and your service. And for that, we thank you and congratulate you on this well-deserved honor.
I've worked with on these projects, and I'm so grateful for all your help. It's really been an awesome time, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I just introduced my wife Linda, who gave me time and the back here, I think. I can't see. And
Behind every great man.
And my son Justin, who some of you have worked with, I know, in his own professional capacity. So thank you all, and it's been a real joy.
Protected, right? I don't want to get fingerprints all over it before we took the photo. I'll just hand this straight to you. Good idea. And you guys may be seated. Yeah. You want us? Oh, you want us? Yes, I want you in there, and then I'll get the forward in a second, so everybody will here. All right.
And then move forward. Smile, Kevin. Awesome, congratulations.
Oh, wow. So, congratulations again, and thank you, Linda and Justin, for being here with us today. It's a very special moment. My husband got to work, my Kevin got to work with our honoree today earlier in his career, and you know, he said he just made such an impact on him and everybody that he's worked with. So now I have the honor of introducing today's speaker. Congressman Morgan McGarvey is a lifelong Louisvillian who, before being elected to Congress, served for a decade in the Kentucky State Senate, including 4 years as the minority leader of the Senate Democratic Caucus. He was elected to Congress in 2022 and currently serves on the Veteran Affairs, Small Business, and Budget Committees. In his first term, Congressman McGarvey was the first freshman Democrat to pass a bill out of the House. This bill supports and protects veterans' earned educational benefits. He is also a proud co-chair of the Bourbon Caucus and of the Ohio River Basin Caucus. So you can't hide where you're from, right? In Congress, as he did in the state Senate, Congressman McGarvey fights for public education, organized labor, reproductive rights, and Kentucky's working families, while building relationships with his colleagues in both parties to pass legislation that helps and protects Kentuckians every day. Across 10 years in Frankfort, then State Senator McGarvey wrote and passed 18 bills into law. Those include passing the first insurance mandate in Kentucky history to make sure that low birth weight babies get the nutrients they need to survive, laws that protect victims of human trafficking and domestic violence, and a law that allowed Simmons College, Louisville's only HBCU, and I know Simmons is in our house today, to lower tuition costs for its students and restart its teacher training program, putting more Black teachers into classrooms across Louisville and Kentucky. Congressman McGarvey graduated from DuPont Manual High School. He earned a BA in journalism from the University of Missouri, where he met his wife, Chris. And he also has a JD, Juris Doctor, from the University of Kentucky School of Law. Congressman McGarvey, Chris, and their 3 children, Clara, Wilson, and Greta, live in the Highlands neighborhood of Louisville. So let's welcome Congressman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Before we get into the speaking and the questions, which we will definitely get to questions, I just want to add to the tribute to Kevin Wardell. And I brought a certificate from the House of Representatives. And rather than go through all of Kevin's accolades, which you've heard, I just want to tell you about Kevin. He's such a good person. He made Louisville and this community his home. And 15 years ago, when I was the very youngest member of his leadership Kentucky class, we became good friends. It was just a few short years later that our kids were born 14 weeks premature at 1.5 pounds, 1 pound and 15 ounces. The only place in the region that could care for us was Norton Hospital downtown. And as a 31-year-old nobody who just happened to have been in this leadership Kentucky class, Kevin personally came to our room. My wife was in labor and checked on us throughout the summer. He told the staff to take care of these people. They're my friends. And Kevin is the type of guy who, if you're his friend, you're always his friend, and he takes care of you. And Kevin, you deserve this award as much as anybody in this room, and I'm just so pleased to see you and Linda here today, and just know how much we love and care for you. You are our friend. So thank you so much.
Hold the
Governor
mic up.
Happy Chandler once said,
Hold the mic up just a little bit. Thank you.
Governor Happy Chandler once said, I feel a little bit like the mosquito who flew into the nudist colony. I hardly know where to start. So I'll do a little bit of scene setting into what's happening in Washington and truly want this to be a conversation between us. So when I say this, ask anything, ask him. People ask me all the time, what's it like up there? Now, I am a glass half full person by nature. I'm a Democrat and a University of Kentucky football fan here in the Commonwealth. Optimism runs in my nature. But my answer is it's worse than it seems. It's worse than it seems not because we are any longer debating right versus left. We are no longer agreeing on right versus left. We have a president of the United States, not a Republican president, a president of the United States, who is accepting a $400 million jet from the Qatari government, who, when a court rules against him because his actions violate the rule of law, refers to it as a judicial coup. This is dangerous talk. When a court exercises the powers that Alexander Hamilton and James Madison gave them in Article 3 of the Constitution, it's not a coup, it's a job. We have belittling of every group of people out there. We have rhetoric that has elevated to all-time levels of divisiveness. We have attacks on our universities, our judges, and our elected officials that put our whole system at risk. And behind this, what I think frustrates me is the legislative branch. And look, there's 3 co-equal branches of government, but there's a reason we're Article 1. And for a long time, we have been considered the first among equals. The legislative branch is ceding its power to allow this to happen. There should be investigations into what's happening with cryptocurrency and people paying millions of dollars to attend a dinner at the White House. Again, this should not be a partisan point. If you think it is a partisan point, what would you think if Hunter Biden was doing it? And the legislative branch shouldn't allow it to happen. But even more than that, the legislative branch is ceding its power on our most important function. The legislative branch gets to do a lot. At the end of the day, what do we do that really matters? We spend the money. We have the power of the purse. A budget is not just the ultimate policy document, it's a moral document. We can tell you all we want about what we value and what we want to do. But if we don't put our funds behind it, it's meaningless. The budget we just passed, even Senator Josh Hawley refers to as immoral. Why? We can have conversations and debate in this very room about whether debt and deficit is a good thing. We have conversations in this very room about whether tax breaks are a good or a bad thing. But we cannot disagree on what is in the budget and what the numbers do. The Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan office, estimates that 14 million Americans are going to lose their health care under Medicaid. What does that look like? That's a zoom out. We don't understand what that looks like when you zoom out. Let's zoom in. Here in Louisville, Kentucky, there's a young 10-year-old girl named June. She has quadriplegic cerebral palsy. She has 2 brothers. She's at home right now with her 2 dogs and her mom. Her family is the only thing that makes her smile. 3 weeks ago, she had 3 spinal cord surgeries in the same week. She can't talk without the aid of a computer. She can't hear without the aid of a cochlear implant. She can't move or walk and is wheelchair bound. Her mom works 4 jobs. There is no way anyone can pay for that type of care without a Medicaid waiver. Get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. But don't ignore what Medicaid is and what it does. 46% of Medicaid recipients right here in Kentucky are children. Our rural hospitals are on the verge of closing now. Cut Medicaid in Eastern Kentucky, where 50, that's not a typo, 50% of people get their health care through Medicaid, and what happens? The budget is a moral document. The problems are not going to go away. Who's going to pay for it? And if you think we're immune here in Louisville, 30% of our neighbors get health care through Medicaid. The University of Louisville Hospital was in my office 2.5 weeks ago, and if the language passed on page 63, line 21 of the big, beautiful bill, University of Louisville is at risk to lose $400 million in funding per year. That's what we're talking about. When we talk about cuts to SNAP, which is, we shouldn't call it SNAP, nobody knows what SNAP is. This is the SNAP. SNAP is the nation's premier anti-hunger program. Over 550,000 of our neighbors, kids, veterans, seniors, use SNAP to augment their meals. I say kids, 225,000 recipients of SNAP benefits in Kentucky are children. There's over $330 billion in cuts to education, Pell Grants. Our public schools receive over $1 billion of that right here in Kentucky. And one of the ways they're talking about making this up is by shifting the cost to the states. So let's talk about the state budget for a minute. I've passed a few of those in my tenure in the state Senate. When they talk about shifting 15% of the cost of SNAP onto the state, there is no money. When they talk about cutting Medicaid to the state, keep this in mind. We get more money in federal Medicaid dollars as the state of Kentucky than the entirety of the Kentucky state budget. We get about $15 billion in Medicaid money from the feds. The entire state budget, roads, bridges, transportation, internet, schools, healthcare, pensions, is about $14 billion per year. And the legislature is allowing this to happen without open debate or open conversation. How do we get past this? I told you I'm an optimist by nature. I'm not going to give up. And the first thing I'm doing, yes, I am using bourbon diplomacy. If nothing else, for my own sanity. I'm going to pass a bill off the floor of the House of Representatives this week to help our small businesses out. I've partnered with my Republican colleagues on many bills to help our veterans, to improve the Ohio River. But how do we get these conversations going on the really big issues? Again, we do not have to agree all the time. That has never been a function of American democracy. My very favorite painting in the Capitol Rotunda. You walk in and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's 8 paintings, and I say paintings, there's massive paintings on these walls. My favorite is the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Not because of the beauty of that document, but because the artist went to great lengths to, under the table, show Thomas Jefferson quite literally standing on John Adams' toes. We've never agreed on everything. But the lack of truth, the lack of respect, the amount of corruption that we're allowing to go through because it is for a team, neglects the duty of all of us to be on the same team, which is Americans. And regardless of where things are right now in the world, there is virtually no better time in the history of the planet to be alive than right now. And virtually no better place to live than right here. But we can't let that go away. When they walked out of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787, the woman famously asked Benjamin Franklin, "Sir, what type of government have you given us?" And he replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." David Odie, a congressman from Wisconsin, said it more succinctly: democracy doesn't guarantee a happy ending. So it's up to us. All of us. And it's easy for me to say. The only thing I have to risk is my job. I can lose that. But all of us need to stand up and speak up and do our part to protect the greatest country on earth and keep it the greatest country on earth. And sometimes people look at me and they say, well, what can I do? Anything. Yesterday I was in the office here in Louisville, and quite literally a man came up to the office and he handed me a petition, a signed petition, asking me not to make cuts to Medicaid. Do you know how many people signed it? One. Him. Raise your voice. Your voice matters. Each one of us has that ability. When I was in the state Senate, Jeanette McHugh came to me. She'd been suffering abuse from her husband. One day, he finally beat their kid. She stepped in to stop him, he pulled out a gun and fired it at her. The bullet went through her sweater. She said, I'm pressing charges, I'm getting away from this guy. But in Kentucky law, found out along the way that after he was in jail, convicted of abusing her and her child, that to get divorced, she would have to pay the attorney's fees. So we changed the law. The law I'm passing off the floor of the House of Representatives this week, Cody Banks, an entrepreneur right here in Louisville, Kentucky, who's just differently able than the rest of us, came to me and said the American dream isn't as accessible to all of us as it should be. So we're erasing barriers to try and make sure that anybody who wants to start a business, regardless of their ability, has what they need. Why do I tell you those two stories? All those two people did as one person was speak up. And if one person speaks up, they can change the law for everybody who's been abused, or everybody who's differently able. And if one person speaks up, they change the law, which changes the state. And if one person speaks up to change the law that changes the state, they can speak up and change the law that changes the country. And if each one of us is willing to use our voice and stand up for what we believe as Americans, that the North Star, that all people have an equal shot of success and we are moving towards a more perfect union, then in fact, it shall not perish from this earth. But we all have to do our part. And for the people in this room, your voices are already bigger than some in the community. So I encourage you to use them. I thank you for being here, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions you all have.
Thank you, Congressman McGarvey. So we have gone through a process where our Speakers Committee has called questions from Rotarians this week. We figured there might be some, redundancies and things like that. So our Speakers Committee is going to come to this microphone to ask you a compilation of questions. Committee members, if you will please remember to introduce yourselves before you ask the question. And then my understanding is you may want to open up for other questions as well. Of course, that's your prerogative.
I know, I just got a standing ovation. My grandfather always said, don't sell past the close. I'll take them.
Thank you for being here, Congressman. I'm Sandra Dodd with New Directions Housing. That's your first hint as to what my question is going to be about. And on a side note, Junie is a friend of our family, so thank you very much for fighting for her and our opinions. Louisville has a huge shortage of affordable housing. Add to that, there's a lot of talk about changes to who qualifies for HUD assistance. How will that impact families here in Louisville, and what are you doing to improve our situation?
Yeah, I think we need a Marshall Plan for affordable housing. What happened to the spirit of we can do things? We can do this. We're what, 60 to 70,000 units short in Louisville right now? 6 to 7 million units short across this country? And I don't want to freak you all out, If we do nothing, the housing problem is not going to get better. So if you're looking at this, we know this, and I'm a firm believer in this, and I love the work New Directions does. If we can put a roof over your head, so many other problems get fixed. So when we're talking about how do we improve education, how do we improve healthcare, how do we improve employment, when you're talking about the fact that a child doesn't have a stable home, this is how you fix these problems. And so I think this is it's a Marshall Plan, it is a New Deal type project where not only are we putting money into affordable housing everywhere in this country, there actually is a cascading effect. You know, some of the idea right now, the tax breaks that they're putting in this budget, that are going to the richest 0.1, not 1%, 0.1% of Americans, that it's going to trickle down to the rest of us. We've seen for the last 50 years that doesn't work. You actually put people to work building houses and money does come back into the economy. And then people get housing and then we start to fix the problem. So I founded the Affordable Housing Caucus when I was in Frankfurt. We are continuing to work with my colleagues and to author legislation to help push this initiative. And I think there's ways we can do it. You know, sometimes it freaks people out to start really big with a bold idea. One of the ways that I want to make progress on this now is through our Veterans Committee. So I'm on the Veterans Committee, and again, you guys can say whatever you want to about me. I think that the words homeless veteran should be stricken from the vocabulary. And so sometimes, you know, I'm not saying I'm in favor of incrementalism, but I do want to get something. I think if we can prove that these programs work, and even in a population like our veterans, then we can quickly scale it up.
Congressman, thank you for your time today and your candid comments. I wonder if you could share with us some of the bipartisan legislation you're working on.
Yeah, happy to do that. One of my favorite guys in Congress, I'm on the Veterans Committee. I'm ranking member on the subcommittee where Morgan Luttrell is the chairman. Morgan Luttrell, former Navy SEAL from Texas. You guys might know his identical twin brother, also a Navy SEAL, Marcus Luttrell, who quite literally is the lone survivor. Who the book and the movies was based on his combat in Afghanistan. So, you know, sort of unlikely bedfellows, me and a career SEAL from Texas coming together, but just a super good guy who, what I love about the Veterans Committee is we're mission oriented. We can disagree on certain issues, but when we come in, we gotta deal with them for veterans. So, you know, in a political setting, we can talk about guns and we can have different opinions. When we get into the Veterans Committee, we have to deal with the fact that 17 veterans every day are taking their own life by suicide. We can talk about reproductive rights and have a political conversation about it. In the Veterans Committee, we got to deal with the fact that there are women veterans living in states where they cannot get reproductive care, particularly in unwanted pregnancies. How do we deal with that? So I'm introducing a lot of legislation with him right now, some big stuff that I'm really excited about. And I've got a bill coming out, go ahead and tell you, I got a bill coming out called the Innovate Bill, introduced at the end of last Congress. I'm working with Morgan and some others on this bill. This is a bill I think can be transformational. I don't know if you all are familiar with DARPA. DARPA was the the Department of Defense to do research. This is how we have GPS. This is how we have the internet. Because they were researching ways to give our troops advantage on the battlefield and then bringing them to the private sector. Well, the VA has 9 million patients, the largest patient population by multiple of any healthcare system in the country. 75% of physicians do some of their training or work with the VA. We have the largest longitudinal data set of any healthcare system in the country. Think about it, we get you when you're 17, 18 years old, we keep you till the day you die. And we do nothing with it. Nothing. We do not incentivize innovation like we should in the VA. Now, think about this. If we actually cut through some of the red tape and we incentivize innovation within the VA, and we find a way to treat traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, PTSD, not only do we help our veterans, that applies to everybody. Now think even bigger, because those are service-connected injuries. What about the people who come into the VA with Parkinson's, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's? What if we pass this bill and 15 years from now, we find a cure for one of those? then it impacts everybody in the world. So we're working on some big stuff for the veterans right now. And of course, for us in Louisville, Erin Houchins across the river, who's fantastic. She and I have introduced the first ever Ohio River Restoration Initiative. It's based off the Great Lakes Initiative, it's based off the Chesapeake Bay Initiative. It's the largest body of water in the country that doesn't receive a single dollar in dedicated federal funding. And I think we need to clean up the Ohio River for all sorts of reasons. Whether it's environmental, whether it's economic, we got to do it. And then we'll blow up 64 and have access to the river, and everybody's going to win. I see you, Tyler Arm.
Hello, Mary Ellen Harden.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. And I know how to reach my congressman. I'd like to ask, the best way for us as citizens, we know how to reach you. Is there value in contacting both Congress and Senate of the opposite party? Is the best method by phone, I've heard, is sometimes better, or email? What is your strategy for how we should reach out to those who are not our own congressmen?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yes. Reach out, call us, email us, talk to us. Make your voice heard, even if you think the person disagrees with you. I can tell you the difference between Congress and the state legislature really quickly. When I was a state senator, how many staffers do you all think I had? I had 1/3 of one person. When I moved into leadership, I got half a person. So I shared an aide with 3 other senators, and then there were just 2 of us. So you're doing all that work yourself. You're reaching out to your Metro Council or your state senate. We can talk about the different ways to contact them because it's going to them. You contact us. First quarter of this year, I have those statistics back. We received 47,000 calls and emails to the office. There is no way I'm going to see every single one of those. We try to respond to every single one of those. But what I get every week is a report. And it tells me the issue and how many people called and where their position on it was. And so if I see that 662 people called about the budget and are against it because of this reason, right? How do you get to 662? 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? You guys have to be that one. And I know that other offices do it in a similar fashion. So for us, I think what look at is between a call and an email is what kind of response you want. You probably get a little bit more of a response from an email from us. It's still somewhat formed, right? And I don't say that as a bad way. I review all of the form letters that go out, but at the end of the day, we're responding to 47,000 of them in 3 months. It's just, we can't give you every person a personalized response. But call or email doesn't really matter as long as we see what's happening in our area where we live. It's really, really important. And again, I look at it every Sunday night.
Thank you for being here today and your rousing call to action. My name is Alice Bridges. I'm with the Parks Alliance of Louisville. I wanted to ask you about the environment. So the effects of climate change are being felt more strongly than ever, especially here in Kentucky, where we've had, I think, 3 weather-related calamities just this year. My organization had a significant grant from the EPA that was terminated summarily because it was part of the Environmental Justice Division of the EPA, which has been also terminated. What are your priorities and strategies to address climate change and protecting our environment?
Yeah. Fortunately and unfortunately, people are just starting to see this happen. Every morning at 7 o'clock, the kids are usually still, some of them at home, and I turn on the Today Show. I turn on the Today Show because I figure if it's in the A block of the Today Show, that's sort of what America's talking about. And a few weeks ago, it was Al Roker who was talking about the tornadoes and flooding in places like Kentucky. And the explanation he gave is this is happening here more frequently because the temperatures are going up in this part of the country, so they're moving out of Tornado Alley into the eastern part of the United States because of rising temperatures. Again, we can disagree and have different opinions about how to fix things. We should not disagree on what is happening. So we gotta fix this. And We gotta help out. I think the first priority right now is not the complete gutting of the Inflation Reduction Act. Not only will that have a massive impact on climate change and climate initiatives, it's 11,000 jobs here in Kentucky. It's billions in economic development here in Kentucky as we better prepare for that. We gotta have good healthcare. We gotta have good housing. We gotta have safe streets. We gotta move not in the 20th century with broadband, but into the 21st century with all of the new advances in technology that we have. We have not found a way to prevent tornadoes and flooding from ravaging communities right now. And so, I'm not gonna say none of that matters if we don't get this right, but we gotta get this right. And my hope is that, again, unfortunately, as this moves into more rural communities, as this moves into places that people see what's happening and they feel invested in. I think this is a 6-alarm fire now. We are late in acting on this, and so we gotta get people to go along with this. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, this is one I don't understand, this has become a partisan issue. And whether it's happening being real or not, but we gotta move past that and fix it to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Congressman. Matt Moulter, I'm a Rotary Leadership Fellow, and make your stories up. You probably know what I'm going to ask you about. Can you speak a little bit about the impact of tariffs, not only on the bourbon industry in Kentucky, being state of this, but also on the state of Kentucky as a whole, and what sort of the Kentucky delegation is doing to sort of make things less chaotic and make it a little better for the future?
Yeah, I was with reporters. Anyone with reporters when they asked about tariffs? Is that Monday at Caveman? Monday. And the guy said, will you name a business that's come to you concerned about the tariffs? And I said, sure, every single business I've talked to. He's like, well, name one. I said, well, every single one, because of how these are being implemented. Just zooming out on tariffs for a second, I say this all the time, tariffs are neither good nor bad. Tariffs are a tool. A hammer is neither good nor bad. It's a tool. It's really good for putting a nail on a wall. It's not so good for fixing your iPhone. How you use tariffs as a tool matters. And how the Trump administration is wielding them in such an unconstitutional and chaotic on-again, off-again way is driving our business, our bond market, and our stock market into total chaos. Now look at the bond market. I always look at the bond market. You know, the stock market's important. It's 3,700 companies. The bond market really will tell you something. And the chaos, there was one day with the bourbon industry. I was on the phone with a lot of the leaders in the bourbon industry here in Kentucky. On Monday, the tariffs were on Tuesday, they were off. On Wednesday, they were on Thursday, they were off. And that's what we're dealing with. So what am I trying to do? This is where politics makes strange bedfellows. I like Rand Paul's legislation. That actually puts this power squarely in Congress's hands. I think it's there already, but obviously there's a need to reiterate that. And I do think when we're talking about these broad, sweeping tariffs, again, I am not anti-tariff. Rand Paul might be anti-tariff, I don't know. I'm not anti-tariff, but how we use them matters. And the way that Donald Trump is using them is quite literally hurting every single business who's talked to me. From bourbon to automotive to, I was talking with Michelin, who, obviously produces a lot of synthetic rubber here in Louisville, Kentucky. They told me that they hired a team of 30 people after the election to anticipate the impact of tariffs on their business. And that none of them got it right. Because of how no one could actually anticipate he would use them in such a bad and chaotic manner. So I think that's kind of where we are. We've got to get some people, and this is the biggest thing. I've kind of hit around this, I'm just going to go into it. I know it's hard to stand up against your party. I know it's hard. And I know it's really hard to stand up against the executive of your party when you're in the legislative branch. I know that in part because I've done it. Most recently, I did it when I called on President Biden not to run for re-election to President of the United States. We need some people in our delegation and Republicans across the country to stand up to the policies of this administration that are hurting our communities. It doesn't mean they have to disagree with them on everything. It doesn't mean they're not Republicans. It just means the policy isn't working. We need to exercise our legislative independence, and we need to say what works and go on. And I really want to see some of them do that. Keep in mind this budget passed by one vote in the House. We just needed a few more people to stand up and say, this adds trillions of dollars to our debt while taking health care and food out of the hands of our most vulnerable.
Two-part question. You mentioned Senator Paul. So my understanding is he's opposed to the bill that came out of the House. So what do you think will happen over on the Senate? And then the second part, that's obviously a policy question. The second part is political. You mentioned the president and his particular actions and stuff like this. In any sense, whomever is the nominee in 28, whether that kind of mannerism, that kind of ethos, if you can use that word, would apply to that nominee, or do you think it, collateral damage will leave when he's gone? So two-part. Wait till we come out of the Senate. Do you think the president's ethos will continue beyond his term?
Two great questions. The second one's harder, so I'll answer the first one first. Short answer, who knows what happens in the Senate? Maybe they will stop watching the paint dry over there for a few minutes and get the bill back to us before September 30th. But I think you've seen some, again, chaos, right, and constant changing. So the president, a week and a half ago, said that the bill does not add to the national debt or deficit. Again, this is just, it's a lie. It does. Thomas Massey and I might not write the same budget if we were given the pen, but we agree on the math of this bill. It adds trillions of dollars to the debt. Now Elon Musk has said the same thing. So when I hear a guy like Rand Paul, I think it's sincere in his beliefs, say that he's opposed to this bill, I'm not really surprised. This is a fiscal disaster waiting to happen for the country. They're going to have to change some things because of the amount they are having. This is not hard, guys. They are cutting over $5 trillion in revenue to us, money we get in, and they're only cutting about $1.5 trillion in our spending. That's a problem if you're trying to balance a budget. Where does it go in the Senate? I'm not exactly sure. I do expect it to change. And look, don't be surprised if Donald Trump changes his position on the bill. and it's funny, and I'm not joking. He came to the Republican conference before they passed the bill and told them not to touch Medicaid. After, of course, they had already planned all of their cuts around Medicaid. If he feels the pressure building, he's going to save himself. So that's where I see the bill going. I think there's going to be changes. How do we get it back? How do we make it? There's a way to make it even bipartisan. Can we get there? I don't know yet. What happens in the next presidential election? Here's a weird thing. In the gambling markets, I'm predicting. Guess who the number 2 most likely to be president in 2028 is?
Sure.
Donald Trump. Number 1's Marco Rubio. Sorry, Kentucky. We're not 1 or 2, all right? Number 2 is Donald Trump. Let that sink in for a second when you're talking about the ethos that's going to dominate the 2028 election. Donald Trump, in my opinion, is singular. I've never seen another president like him. I've never seen another president in my political lifetime, which I know I'm younger than some of the people in this room, but have that much power over their own party. If they win the midterms, I'm not sure what happens. If they lose the midterms, I think we will see a shift away from Trumpism. It's a close loss where they win. I think that continues to dominate. And it's sort of borne out by what we're seeing in the betting markets today. You guys can guess how I feel about that, I don't need to say it. Yeah.
Thank you, Congressman, and thanks for being here, thanks for your passion. My question is about higher education. We've all seen President Trump's attack on Harvard. It seems like maybe he's using that as an example for other schools, other colleges. And, you know, I'm concerned about the loss of international students, research grants, and the impact that we have on American exceptionalism if our universities aren't at the top of the world. So I know you're in a difficult position being in the minority, but as a Democrat in our Congress, is there much you can do to respond to that? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're gonna speak up, speak out every chance we get. Every single chance we get. The problem I have, and believe it or not, that guy has not been president for 150 days yet. It just feels like 10 years. And so over the last 150 days or 10-year period, I've reminded a lot of people, I'm not in the Senate. Every individual senator has more power than nearly every single individual member of the House. Because of that dynamic, the House majority has more power than the Senate majority. Right? There's not one person in the House that can stop a bill from going through. There's one person in the Senate who can stop a bill from going through, but our majority is really, really powerful. We've got to get some people to join us and recognize and call this out for what it is. This is authoritarianism 101. Right? You don't have to go after every university. Go after one. You don't have to go after every judge. Arrest one. You don't have to go after every member of Congress. Arrest one. And try and chill the rest of the dissent. That's what we're not going to let happen. So whether I'm on podcasts, I'm filming videos and putting them on social media, I'm going on TV stations, local and national, speaking to the press, speaking to groups, we're going to continue to speak up and speak out against this. This is not right, this is not normal, this is wrong. What is happening, is doing to Harvard is in fact wrong. But what can we do about it from the minority in the House? Not a lot. What can we do about it if 3 Republicans join us in that? A lot. A lot. Because the majority is so important. So we will continue to speak, we will continue to extend the olive branches, find ways to work with people when we can. I will never give up on that. If I can promise you 2 things, right? I will never, ever give up and stop fighting for Louisville, and I will work with anybody to try and get something done. When Tom Massey and I have the same budget voting record this year, it's a weird time. But you know, that's what it's going to take. And I'm sorry that's the answer, but it's going to take right now, when we are in the minority in both chambers of the legislature, it is going to take someone in the majority joining us. Because I know I hear this all the time. People say, Democrats play by the rules, Republicans don't, you guys got to stop playing by the rules. Okay, let's have that conversation about it earlier. I've never seen anyone say that a minority of votes will pass a bill. That is a rule that has been sacred. And even when Republicans were in the minority, they might have hated the Inflation Reduction Act, they might have hated Build Back Better, but a majority of people voted for it, the president signed it into law, and it became law. And that's what we got to do. We have a majority of people to join us.
Good afternoon, Congressman McGarvey, and just first want to say thank you for everything that you have said, everything that you're discussing is right on point, and I'm sure that everyone's questions have been answered. But for me, as an African American woman, a social worker, and a business owner, here in Louisville, Kentucky, that faces sexism and classism on a regular basis, get labeled as a liar or a troublemaker for advocating for herself, and not only just for me, but for other women of color who are business owners. What advice would you give me for advocating for myself? Because I heard you earlier talk about your friends and to always speak up, which I'm gonna always do anyhow. Nevertheless, just for others in the room to know and get a better understanding of what it's like to be a woman and a business owner and a woman of color.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect example of where I have a privilege of standing up and speaking out, but not everybody has. I'm aware of that, which is why I use it. And even when I was talking about the different nonprofits and such, where it's harder to speak up and speak out, I fully recognize that. What I'm asking you to do is harder than what I'm doing, without question. I do think it's important. I think this is a moment in our country's history that matters. And there's going to be some short-term pain. There's going to be consequences for speaking out and standing up. I just think it's important that we all take this moment to do it. Because if we don't, I do fear what happens. I can't tell you how many people have told me, I don't watch the news anymore. I can't do it. I'm laying low. Now's not the time for that. But I know what I'm asking you to do is significantly harder than what I do. Significantly. You have a lot more on the line than I do. And you face a different treatment, a different scrutiny, and a different discrimination.
Okay.
Yeah, than I do. So that's hard. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. If you ever want me standing beside you, in front of you, or behind you, just give me a call.
Say less.
And I'll do it.
One shout out for you, people don't realize that your office solved the problem for my wife, and that was one person talking to one person in her office. She tried to figure it out for 9 months, and your people did it in a week. So, but the one question I really ask is, I'm a Vietnam era person, and I was at the convention that nominated Humphrey, saw all the fiascos that went on, went to college 60 miles from where Kent State students were killed, and participated in a lot of the demonstrations. At that time, obviously there was the upheaval in the country, but it was about one issue, and that was Vietnam. So I think most of us would agree that there's a plethora of issues negatively going on in the country. But can't we figure out or come together as a country or party or whatever for one issue? Because you can't organize for 17 issues. But what is the key issue? Because I found out yesterday that the cause of the Vietnam War was that Lyndon Johnson and his wife owned all the munitions back in the war. So, I mean, there's craziness going on. But if we were to figure out, Congress, one issue to rally the troops, I'm willing to, somebody willing to pay my bail, go to jail. But seriously, talking about tariffs and everything else is great, but what is the central issue that you guys can point us to really make?
Yeah. If I'm just being brutally honest, the answer is I'm not sure. I think part of the success of Trump's strategy is how much he floods the zone. And it was Will Rogers who famously said, I wanted to join an organized party, but I became a Democrat. And there's a little bit of truth to that. You're asking me to pick one issue today, which I think we should unite behind and truly is bulletproof. It's the corruption. I am amazed that anybody tolerates the blatant level of corruption we are seeing come out of the White House. Again, this is not, take the names out of it. Imagine your favorite Democratic politician is the current President of the United States. They're selling their own crypto meme coin and giving private access to the White House to the top buyers. Imagine that when you were president before, you had said the Qatari government funds terrorism, that you accused your political rivals of taking bribes from them. Yet you hired an attorney general and a director of the FBI who were on their payroll and then authored an opinion allowing you to accept a $400 million claim which we will have to spend hundreds more millions to outfit, to actually make it acceptable for our President of the United States to fly on, and then who keeps it when he's finished being president? He does. I'm aging myself here, but the first president I remember in my lifetime, really remember doing things, is Bill Clinton. And I remember when it was a big deal whether or not he inhaled marijuana smoke. And this is what we have going on. So I think the corruption, the through line of this administration is corruption. And I think we have to hit on that and hit on it and hit on it and hit on it because no one can defend it because it's indefensible.
Amen.
Yeah. On that happy note, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Congressman, for everyone who is sitting time with us today. This is a Rotary commemorative coin, and it has, thank you again.